What's up, everybody? It's me, Tom, the OG Fig Kid.
And me, the man with the plan, good old Mike Bellcaster. Guys, welcome to our debut at FigGuys, man. We appreciate you all for tuning in. Tom,
I
same Fig show, same Fig time. How are you doing this week, sir?
I am so excited. We have a brand new start, and what a way we are going to kick it off today.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. Feeling good. We got a lot of good stuff happening this week. We got our Jazwares Vault drop tomorrow for Death Triangle and Danhausen, and I'm super stoked, man. I hope are you ordering?
I'm ordering.
Well, I'm pumped, man. But I mean, should we waste any time?
Let's not waste any more time.
Nobody better to talk about the Jazwares Vault with than the Jazz Daddy himself, our special guest, man. Tom, let's get into it, man.
I almost want to do a Kennedy drop right now.
Oh, I love it.
Welcome
Not bad.
to Jeremy Padawer. Thank you so much for joining us today on our first episode, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I was so excited that you guys reached back out, and always ready to talk action figures with you guys and your awesome audience.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, man.
Let's jump right into it. Let's talk about the Jazwares Vault. Like seamless, smooth, like what an introduction to it. It's been amazing. I've ordered a whole bunch of stuff, never a problem. Congratulations on that.
Oh, thank you so much. Listen, I feel like we've been incredibly fortunate. We've got such a great partner with AEW, and across our entire brand portfolio, we're just in a good position right now.
Yeah, no, it's amazing, and I do want to take time to shout out how quick the turnaround is from the second you hit that order button. I mean, the figures are at my house in 3 to 4 days. It's insane, and a good feeling. We us collectors, we get impatient sometimes, and not even a worry here. But you guys ship everything in these beautiful overpacks that make sure the product is taken care of. The artwork is just fantastic on it. I can't say how premium quality products we're getting here. It's insane, man.
Yeah, no, I mean the team goes out of their way to try to protect the product. I believe there's 2 outer covered. Once you get past the shipper, then inside you have another internal shipper that has the graphics, and then when you open that up, then you start getting to the packaging itself. But it's a passion play, man. We just love the entire category of wrestling. Jazwares Vault goes beyond wrestling. It goes into a lot of our other brands, but we love the consumer. We love the end consumer, and we just want to put them in the best position of having something that they'll cherish for a long time.
Yeah.
I got my Malachi Black Supreme in the mail. The outer box was damaged. I was all bummed. So I opened it up. The packaging was brilliant. The inside was fine. So as a collector, and we know you're a collector, the thought was put into it. So that's amazing. It makes me say, oh, I'm going to definitely keep ordering when I see that they care. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you. No, it definitely means a lot. Hearing that from you and hearing that you did have that issue and that they resolved, or either we resolved it or the way it was packaged resolved it. That means a lot. That really does.
Yeah. And we've seen all these great releases. We've seen, tomorrow we're getting a Danhausen Ring of Honor figure and the Death Triangle 3-pack. Looks amazing. I can't wait for it. This is the 3rd drop from Jazwares Vault so far for the AEW and Ring of Honor line. So where do we go from here? We know the Briscoes are coming. We saw a whole bunch of social media videos with them looking at it. Do you guys have more of a map planned out for the future already?
Yeah, I mean, look, I would say that the team works somewhere between 6 months and 15 months out, depending on the project. And so, I do realize sometimes that can get frustrating if you have a pay-per-view event and you'd love the product to be on the shelf the next week, but the reality of development, especially when you're developing with a licensing partner, is that absolute fastest, you're probably talking about 3 months with shipping plus another 6 months of development. 9 months is really on fire to try to get something done.
Yeah.
With all of that said, that's always the goal, to try to be as close to possible with things that we're launching.
And you could tell, and that's a great thing. That's why I favor the AEW line so much, because of the care that goes into not only just the figures themselves. I mean, top-notch stuff coming out there, but I mean, the packaging's gorgeous. It really stands out. Like those new pay-per-view series figures that are at Target, like when you walk in to Target and you see that Revolution green or that upcoming pink that the Britt Baker's gonna have, like, it stands out so much from what you see on the shelves, and it's just so beautiful. It really captures the eye of the collector.
No, listen, we wanted, when we launched AEW, and much the way when we launched Classic Superstars way back in the day, the objective was to have something that would stand the test of time and then would allow you to scale. So having exclusives, having all the things that we do, and just wrapping a different color at the top, that's still shiny and beautiful, but fun to collect, and that's really the goal. So it's cool. I'm so happy that that's the way you feel about it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love the packaging, the ringside exclusives. Like, it's some of the best packaging in the toy business out there. Like, they're just amazing. Like, it makes me have to buy two. Like, you make me broke, because how can I
make me broke? By the way, that should be a T-shirt. Make me broke.
I like it.
That, to me, that is a solid collector T-shirt. I would wear it. I can relate to it.
I love it.
Our T-shirt site up and running. You know what? We'll just have to add that shirt in there. But no, it's so true. Like, you get these packages, and like I haven't seen it yet. We've seen the pictures online of the Death Triangle. Like,
yeah.
Packaging is amazing. It's a triangle and it unfolds, and it's just like the work and the thought that's put into it. The fact that it's just feels like collectors are making for collectors now, and to me that brings everything to a whole nother level.
On this team, it's definitely the case. I mean, every team has different nuances within a company. I will say our AEW team, from packaging to design to PD to brand marketing, they're all fans. They're all big fans of the underlying content, and they're wrestling fans in general. And so we let them loose. At the end of the day, the more we do that is collector friendly, the longer this line lives. And that's the key: longevity.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's so true. And it's awesome now because we're seeing releases and pre-orders on the regular now, like back through Ringside. I'm walking into my Walmarts and I'm seeing the new sets. Like, they're so much easier to find. Can you give us a status update on how the whole line is right now and everything?
Yeah, sure. Like, I would say that right now we're in a good position, because everything is about supply and demand. Okay. And so the objective is to always find where that demand curve is, and then slightly undersatisfy it. And look, the reason why you want to do that is because the last thing retail wants on a wave to wave basis is to have product from the prior wave sitting around. I would say for the first 2.5 years, we did a great job at not having anything sitting on shelf. And then we got to a couple waves that were overshipped. And those waves sat for way too long. We actually went to the trade. We actually went to retail. We paid to get that stuff taken off the shelves by a retail business development team. Literally paid item to item, and then made those obsolete and melted them into a giant FigGuys statue. There's like maybe 80,000 figures have been melded into a giant FigGuys statue somewhere in the desert. And that may not be true, but who knows?
It's with the game.
Yeah. But at this time, what I would say is where we're at. We're in a situation where, occasionally I'll see some old product at retail. I'll see some empty shelves, but I can see the numbers. We're shipping in, they're selling out, and we're moving on to the next wave. And we're going to continue to do that.
Yeah, no, it seems like the product is as hot as it's been right now. I mean, I can't say I've seen a wave sit on the shelf for more than a week or two over here. They fly. Like, it's beautiful,
No,
they're gone in a day now. If I see
the difference between having product sit on shelf a day and products sit on shelf a year, is you wouldn't believe how slim those margins are to make sure that that doesn't happen. If you can get product to get in and out off the shelf, essentially what you're doing is you're even creating people who collect, who generally don't necessarily collect within the category because they see the value and the excitement. If you ship a little bit too much, then it's not interesting to anybody anymore because they can have it anytime they want, whenever they want it. And it's a very fine line. And I do appreciate very much the collecting community. You know, look, they give you a lot of gruff when either way, or guff. They either way. Like my old boss at LJN, Jack Friedman. I say LJN, Jakks, Jack had created LJN before. He told me once. He said, if you undership by 1 unit, that makes you a ASSH, you know. He said if you overship by 1 unit, that also makes you an ASSH plus. He said, so do you know what that means, Jeremy? You just have to feel comfortable being an ass. I said, okay. I was like, you know what? But here's the lesson. If you're going to do one or the other, undership. You overship by a unit, that unit sits there for a year. You undership by a unit, and the unit's gone in a day. I'm telling you, it's all the difference in the world. But yeah, I can see the numbers. I can see that the waves are blowing in and blowing out, and we're moving on to the next. That's exactly the way it should be.
Yeah, no, it's great, and I love like to tie it back to the vault. I mean, it's got to be easier on your end to be able to supply a product like that, keep the numbers in house, and deliver to the right audience. It's not random mom and kid walking down the aisle. These are your diehard fans that are they want everything AEW, they want everything Ring of Honor, and there's not too many companies out there that are trying to deliver that big shebang to everybody. And I not to speaking on behalf of all collectors, but I appreciate it.
Listen, we'll take the good and we'll take the bad. I understand. Look, as a collector myself, I get frustrated with manufacturers, but I just do recognize, being in the game, that there's no way to do it exactly right. But if you're gonna mess up, always mess up by developing too little. For the marketplace.
I mean, that makes so much sense when you think about it. I never really thought about it that way, but absolutely, that makes so much sense. And this is why I love speaking to you and listening to you speak, because I just feel like I absorb so much just listening to your mind.
Thank you.
It's the truth bombs, right?
After this many years, if I don't have something that I can at least communicate and perhaps teach, or at least provide some insight, then I will have truly screwed up.
Oh man!
So to bring it back to the vault, I mean, we got a lot of different lines out there. Like we're not just wrestling specific. We got some Star Wars up there, Halo. Where do you visualize the target audience is for the Jazwares vault?
Well, there's a lot of brands that we have within the organization. So some of the brands that we haven't even mentioned yet that could potentially be part of this. We've communicated Star Wars and AEW and Halo and Fortnite and Call of Duty, but the organization also has brands like we have Pokemon and Hello Kitty and Squish and all these other major properties that we've been developing against for many years. So what I would say to you is expect the things that the brands we've already dropped, but over the course of the next year, just brace yourself for some really amazing new ones too.
That's exciting.
Looking forward to it. Yeah, it's gonna be cool. So, I'm hoping eventually we'll get some crossovers. Like maybe an Adam Cole dressed as Master Chief, or a possible exclusive down the line or something like that. I know we're all gamers here, and I know the locker room's there.
There's some pretty serious Halo gamers. In the locker room. I mean, even when Cody was there, he was a major fan of Halo. My goodness. I tried to actually do a little matchmaking. I had Microsoft and Cody and AEW. We were all sitting together. I was trying to figure out any way possible to get maybe even get him in the game. But who knows? Listen, listen, you never know, and that team at AEW is the roster there is so awesome that I got to tell you, I believe this. I really do believe that from a wrestling standpoint, and they really do have the most dynamic roster when it comes to the game of wrestling and when it comes to the matches themselves. Like they just crush it.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. Every pay-per-view they put on is a banger, and it's just a can't miss. Like no matter what, like no matter, if you're paying $50 for that pay-per-view, by the end of the night, you're getting your money's worth.
Yeah,
And I
definitely.
saw people online complaining that the pay-per-view is too long, and I'm like, do you always ask for less for your money? Like, what's wrong with you? Amazing 4.5-hour show. But so my question is like, okay, so you are making AEW wrestling figures that
Yeah.
are collectibles. Like, how do you manage to aim it towards kids and collectors at the same time?
Well, it's interesting. If you look at the wrestling, if you look at the action figure aisle, okay, it is a heavily collector oriented aisle. But I'll step back from that and say toys in general. 25 years ago, when I was getting started at Mattel back in the old days, collectors that were adults were considered more of the niche. Okay. And really like the idea of collecting when it came to adults, it was almost like considered like nerdy, or like you were a fanboy or a fangirl. And 25 years later, it's much more mainstream. So the action figure aisle is like 40+% collector. Toys in general at this point in time is like 30%. So the intended recipient, 30%, and that's including preschool and everything else, adults.
Wow.
So when you really break it down, you can make an action figure line that is almost primarily collector. I would say when it comes to AEW and wrestling figures in general, so this applies to almost everything, authenticity is absolutely critical. You can do gimmick stuff, you can, and those things work. In fact, but they can't be kid gimmicks.
Yeah.
So back when I managed the WWE, we had face flipping fighters, and we had pump and flex, and we had maximum sweat, and we had all these things that ultimately failed. And they failed because they just were not intriguing to adults. The Hasbro line, you go back to the mid 90s where you had some sort of action to it, or you go back further to the LJN line and their like rubber oriented product, like that resonates with the adult collector. Yeah, that resonates. That the adult collector engages because it's relevant to them. But the moment you do the things that I'm relating to, which is like you make a kids oriented line in wrestling, it just doesn't seem to work. It's not something that I've seen a lot of success in anyway.
So my question is, let's go back to the Jakks Classic Superstars then.
Sure.
Your baby, your brainchild, when you developed that line, were you thinking, okay, this is how we could pull some more adults in?
Definitely. Yeah. So that was in 2002. And at the time, we were just after the Attitude Era. And Jakks had been managing that line a little bit more as a kid-oriented line. Again, like I said, when you go back that far, there were very few toy companies or individuals thinking in terms of the collector. And, as a kid, I was a big wrestling fan, and that has remained the truth to today. And I thought, you know what? Baseball, football, basketball, hockey, they all have alumni associations. They all have like historical figures that they celebrate. So I had the opportunity to pitch the concept to Mr. McMahon back at the time. Again, I was 29 years old, 28 years old. And I basically said, look, I was like, we are suffering at retail because we're making the same characters over and over and over again. And we're not being super authentic. Let's focus on authenticity, and then let's do an alumni group. And the big challenge that he had was, how do you create figures for the classics, or at the time, the legends?
Yeah.
How do you create that if we as the company were going to be signing those guys ourselves? And we came up with a solution. And essentially the solution was that we would sign at Jakks, we would sign all the classic superstars. And then WWE, if they ever created an alumni program, the deals would immediately revert to WWE, and we would pay fully to the athlete. So at the end of the day, it worked out. But to your original question, I fully theorized at the time that adults would buy deeply into wrestling. And my theory was simply based on the fact that every other major sport had a super advocate in the adult collector.
It's fascinating.
It's amazing. And again, that's what got me back into collecting was the Jakks Classic Superstars, because here I am in the store and I'm seeing, that nostalgia gut punch, because you see the guys, you see a Macho Man, or you see whoever it is that you see that you were connected with as a kid, and it's like, oh my gosh, I need this. And then what does that do? You're still watching a product. Well, I guess I need a John Cena. Like, how could I not? Yeah. So like, it just goes hand in hand with each other.
Well, I'm proud that, to whatever extent I did have some impact on wrestling, because you could see what happened. First of all, Vince was willing to do what was right for business. And that's what he said. And that was true, because you knew in Classic Superstars Series 1, you could see that there were people like Bret Hart and Ultimate Warrior. These were active lawsuits they had with these guys. And yet still, he did the right thing for the business. We signed them, and it was a big sign to the collector community at the time that, man, this is gonna really work. And even to this day with AEW, we want to make a very broad variety of wrestling characters. And I think we still think about how do we celebrate legends. And when it came to WWE, we would celebrate people that were never on the WWE roster. They just happened to be major talent. So who knows? Maybe we'll continue down that path at some point.
Yeah, and it's awesome to see, like, the nostalgia of like an RVD showing up on Collision or Dynamite, and like having the mind thought like, ooh, it's a possibility, and like, that's the fun part about AEW. Like, we just seen Gangrel pop up this past weekend, and like a lot of people, it was so cool, right? And a lot of people had that fear of who's going to remember Gangrel. It was pretty apparent that a lot of people, still hold on to those old memories of their childhood. And I think nostalgia is the best thing in the world for the wrestling fan base, because you're always going to be buying into something that brings you back home. Like, I grew up watching wrestling with my dad, and sadly he's not here anymore. But like, when I buy those action figures or I see those things, or I take my kids to the shows, it's still it's all that brought right in front of your face again. I feel like that with collecting, like walking into a store with my kids and they're like, "Oh, Dad, look, there's a new Britt Baker," and you're like, "Yeah," like, and for somebody going into it, into the adulthood, parenting, all that stuff, it blows my mind, and I don't think especially the wrestling figure industry would be where it's at without what you did with the Classic Superstars line. And I mean, you see it all across the board. Classic figures, they do good business. So we appreciate that, man, so much.
You see it in consumer products. You see it in the use of the classic athletes, and not just as gimmicks to come in and lose. I do know that really opened the eyes at the time. That opened Vince's eyes to how valuable the historical roster is. And I know that there was very little desire to engage at all. But here was the real issue. The real issue was, if we didn't make that choice in 2002, if he wasn't open to it, and the team that the consumer products team that was working with Vince at the time on the WWE side, if they weren't open to it, we might have been off the shelf, because we were struggling with making kids-oriented product. And that's Ruthless Aggression and Adrenaline and Classic and Deluxe Classic and all those other things that we brought out, that was written, the desire was to celebrate the entire roster all the way back, and then to make them very authentic. And you still see that today. I think Mattel does a great job with Elites and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
And hopefully we've stepped it up and surpassed anybody when it comes to some of the AEW product. And you can't do that with every single figure, but occasionally you can create stuff that just kind of blows everyone away, that goes well beyond. Sometimes it depends on their gear and what they wear.
100%. But I think you guys have, I mean, there are some figures that, I mean, Evil Uno, Danhausen, like there's so many ones that you can pick out. I mean, Anthony Bowens even, you're like, these are little versions of them. And that's hard to do. That is super hard to do. Brody King, like there's the nail it on the head as well as you guys have done. I mean, shout out to all the designers, you know, all across the board. But it's,
they all do it great. They all do.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
One of the things I recently saw is I saw someone making a customized, basically taking one of our faces and then spending a tremendous amount of time to make sure that face looked absolutely perfect. And I saw it and I was like, dang, that is so good. And I'll give you an idea of the way the game works, basically. So there's things called paint applications, okay? And these paint applications, you only have a certain number that you can play with, or the figures will just get so damn expensive that it's impossible. And, you know, some figures have less paint applications, some figures have more. And so what you do is you kind of average it and say, listen, in this particular wave, the average is going to be, I'm going to make it up, 85 paint apps per figure. But sometimes when you see someone who's customizing, they may have put 200 paint apps just on the face. They may have put 400 paint apps just on the face and the neck and the upper body and torso. So, you know, sometimes I see things and they just absolutely blow my mind. But I also think that, you know, is there room for a super high-end premium, you know, multi-$100 figure that someone's literally painting? Yeah, definitely. But I don't know, you know, I don't know to the extent that that's mass oriented.
Yeah.
I think we really push the limits of what's possible at the price point at mass, for sure.
Absolutely. I think the Supreme line is not only was revolutionary, I mean, with all the points of articulation and whatnot, but I mean, having the ability to buy one figure and get multiple, you know, attires, multiple looks for them, different heads, different hands. You name it. The CM Punks, he's got more hands than, you know, I've seen in an auditorium clapping, you know, but in the best way possible, because those things, those little details, I mean, they go so far. I remember taking pictures of, you know, the Claudio Castagnoli figure and like the little details that come with the different, you know, the hands that go with it. You got one hand to grab the ropes. You got the fist to punch. You know, it's those little subtleties. You need all that when you're collecting these things, especially for fun stuff like photography and all that.
Definitely. And we had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun making Punk's figure back in the day. And once again, that roster. The roster at AEW is just so dynamic. I really think that they've built that roster in a way that it's a good balance between some of the best new talent and some of the greatest legends of all time. And ultimately, if you lean too heavily on either, you know, you can have a situation where you either age out or you're not relevant yet. But I think they've found a good balance. They really have. And
absolutely.
And they respect the younger talent. And they respect the older talent. I really like what I see there.
Yeah, no, it's been, I haven't been disappointed watching a pay-per-view yet. You know, it's every time it's something mind blowing, like these Anarchy in the arena matches, just stepping each other up. Where do they go? You know, but that's the best part, is they keep you on as a fan on your toes. And I mean, and so do you guys as the action figure provider. It's perfect chemistry.
Well, you know, there's blood and guts, but also what I'd really, you know, in terms of the figure lines, but I do think that Darby with a flamethrower is something that we absolutely must do. I was just talking to the team about it today, and I was like, how do we develop a Darby flamethrower figure and not either burn down a house or get sued or both? And but I've got some ideas. You know, 25 years ago, like I said, I worked on the Hot Wheels line, and there was some of the cool stuff that I saw with smoke and streamers and various things that you can do some really cool stuff. Not to get ahead of myself, because, you know, these things take time. But if anybody remembers the flamethrower in a year, it would be kind of cool if we could execute something awesome against that.
That would 100%. Be amazing. We could melt our other figures with the flamethrower. Ice statue. Yeah. There you go. But so you know, that we had the Jazwares vault. How does that complement the regular line from Jazwares? Like, how do you decide? Like, you know, we've seen the Ring of Honor line, we've seen the Malachi Supreme, we're getting the Briscoes. going into the future now, like, is there a chance we're going to see more Supremes to the vault? Like, how do you like what's coming to the vault? Can you give us a little tease?
Yeah, I mean, like I think that Ring of Honor has been a lot of fun to develop as a vault exclusive offering, but it's also fun to do a lot of things, and I do think that you'll see a good mix of Ring of Honor. You'll see a good mix of even some legend opportunities. You'll see a mix of maybe higher price point, very authentic style figures and figure development, low, I would say low population on some of those, just simply because, again, you can't overship, and you certainly don't want to overship on an exclusive direct consumer item. And maybe at some point we do something completely wild, and like I would love to know what the fans of AEW and action figures in general would think of like a super high end authentic ring, and whether that would make sense, and what kind of demand is out there for that at this point.
Do that with the steel cage combo, and we're all in. Like, we've been waiting for like a nice steel cage. We haven't seen a steel cage, I think, since you made one over a Wicked Cool Toy. So, like, come on, we need a steel cage accessory for our AEW figures. So
it's been a while, Wicked Cool Toys, which we ended up selling to private equity and Jazwares. That's how we got together. And I maintained I was a partner at Jazwares until we sold to Berkshire Hathaway. So you guys know that our boss is Warren Buffett, who, by the way, is a big fan of boxing. I don't know if you guys know that, but Crawford is his guy. Omaha, number one pound for pound. I mean, maybe Usyk is number one now, but Crawford's right up there. So I wouldn't be surprised if Mr. Buffett also doesn't enjoy a wrestling match or two here and there. But yeah, anyways, no, I guess the point of the matter is expect the unexpected. We're open to doing some really cool stuff, and I can promise you that we'll think out of the box. But I'm also very open if your listeners, if your viewers want to send in ideas, let's see them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the quality is definitely, no regard. I remember the little die-cast leather belts you guys used to put out with Jakks, and those are some of my favorite accessories like have ever been made, because they're so authentic looking. They look great, and like when you put it in the wrestler's hand, it falls down properly. It looks so good. So I love seeing the little attention to detail like that, and I couldn't imagine what you would do by putting like a Giants, really high-end ring out there or something like that. I could only imagine the possibilities. So it's got the brain thinking. I'm very excited for the future.
All right. Bring some ideas. Let's see them. I'm totally down.
Yeah, we got our friend Nick Storm in the comments over here right now. He said he would absolutely love a full-scale ring. And so it's good stuff to see, man.
What I'd like to know is what could we do to make it different and better? Like, I want to know what people specifically want. If we were to put out another real scale ring, what would that look like in your mind? Like, just think out of the box, think about crazy stuff, because ultimately, if we did it and we did a direct consumer version, there are no pricing limitations, right?
Yeah.
If you're doing it for retail, and you're at $100, people freak out. But if you're doing it direct consumer and your expectation is you just want to do maybe 5,000-6,000 units, and not 30,000 units or 25 or whatever the heck the number might be, that's a much more achievable thing. And frankly speaking, we're not counting the pennies here. What do they say? Penny wise, dollar foolish. And when it comes to the collector community, sometimes you need to lose a little money here and there in order to maintain a great relationship. Like, one thing that we never do is we always put the limited edition items in waves, the 1 of 5,000s, 1 of 3,000s. We throw them out there. We don't charge extra for them, because we want the fans, we want to be excited and to look for it, and to be, and if there's a secondary market value premium, it's not for us, it's for them.
Yeah.
And so we're going to continue down that path. By the way, do you see behind me that You know,
Oh,
you know
yeah.
what that is? You know what
I
that
noticed
is?
that right away.
It's the elusive Ric Flair.
The elusive. Do you remember
Oh,
this guy?
oh yeah.
That's
The
the one.
details on the robe are just phenomenal.
And my favorite part was we did the
Ooh,
cutout back.
Wow.
that's cool.
Nature boy. You know that was a. I will say to me to have contributed, 20 something years now to wrestling in this particular capacity. No matter how big we've gotten, no matter how much we're doing, and interestingly enough, in February we actually passed Hasbro in terms of volume to be number 3 behind Lego and Mattel. Now,
Wow.
we're number 4 day in day out. But no matter what we do, no matter how big we ever get, wrestling has got to be part of it. It's it's at our heart. We love it, and it's just been a blast working with
Yeah.
it.
Nah, it's so cool. And I always go back to like the talents. Like you can't get Superman you can't show Superman his first action figure. You can't,
Correct.
you can't see Clark Kent handing his figure to his kids and saying like, look what I did. That video that the social team put out with the Briscoes was, with Mark Briscoe showing off to his family, like those are my favorite moments outside of actually buying the figures themselves, seeing the talent be able to see, like, call their moms and say,
Yeah.
"Mom, look, I made like I got a figure." Like it's those little pieces are just so emotionally attached, and like it's a beautiful thing to do. And I always like when I'm talking to people like that, wrestling's the only thing out there that you could possibly do that with. It doesn't matter what, like, basketball toys aren't selling. It's a sad thing, but like, it's so cool to watch these people who work so hard to achieve their dream finally get what they're asking, and love it. This is the best.
You when you get to make a figure to somebody who's been in the business for maybe 10, 15, 20 years, they've never gotten one, but now you get to make it for them.
It's great. I know our whole team revels in that. They love that. They really do. And it's where it gets hard is when the converse of that, when when it's tougher to make a figure for somebody because maybe they're not on TV enough or they're not utilized enough and they haven't had a figure. That's when it gets difficult. But I can tell you that we don't get caught up into what it's not like binary. It's either mass friendly or it's not. We say, look, there's other ways to do it. We can do things in limited edition runs. We can do things as chasers. We can do things as direct consumer. Like our objective really is to celebrate the wide roster. And we know that some of the best and most important talent isn't necessarily in the main event. That like some of the greatest talent sometimes are folks that are often underutilized.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at the success with like a Prince Nana right now, and just orchestrating the crowd in happiness when Swerve makes his way to the ring, and it's to have that in a form of like a figure form is. I mean, it really puts the full puzzle together. It really paints the whole picture, and I feel like those are really necessity people, and a lot of overlooked sometimes by other brands or other things like that. It's cool to see like when we see the Brandon Cutlers and stuff like that. It really makes the smiles, and like you know how important it is for them to get the figures. So it makes you also feel like, hey, I'm going to buy that one day, and I'm going to support him just by doing that. And I hope it goes all the way around.
It's very aspirational. Okay, like it's one thing to watch, to get a Superman action figure. Okay, so you're a kid and you're flying Superman around, and it's fun for a minute. But it's another thing to get a figure of a human being, and not only are you aspirationally playing out their superhero activities, but in the back of your mind, you're thinking, hey, I could actually do this. Like, you can't lift a house, and you can't jump off a mountain top and fly around the world at the speed of light. But you do know that there are other things that actual humans do that are super heroic in nature that you can replicate. And I think that's one of the things that makes wrestling so great. But
Yeah.
to go back to one additional thing that you were mentioning before about some of the other sports when it comes to toys, no, you're right. The other sports, and the reason why I was motivated back in the Classic Superstars days was just that the theory that the classic athletes mattered a lot. But the action figures, outside of maybe a couple things, over the course of time, action figures for baseball, football, basketball, hockey, they don't work all that well versus wrestling. And I'll tell you why. There's two real reasons, okay? One, play hockey or football or basketball with your action figures. It's good luck. It's it's even hard to do that in a fantasy situation. You're setting up 10 different things, or 20 in the case of football. Like it almost is no longer fun.
Yeah.
But with wrestling, grappling two figures together, you can almost replicate almost any move. You can make it feel very real for you in an imagination setting very, very quickly. And the second thing is that, wrestling is fantasy. There is an element of fantasy. Now, I'm not here to say it's real or fake, okay? But because the bumps that they take are very real. And the choreography and the difficulty and the beefs that people have with each other, and all the real life drama, and all the professional drama, there's a lot of real, okay? But the fantasy of it is also one of the things that makes wrestling figures so sought after, because you've got people that have that Marvel or DC mindset, but with real human beings. And it's hard to have a Marvel I hear people joking all the time about football and, okay, it hit the script and now this is exactly, but it's a joke in the end. Like, people don't really believe that NFL is truly scripted, and the ones that do probably believe a lot of different things that are crazy.
They have stock in Reynolds tinfoil. Like, that's their rock and roll.
I mean, look, Reynolds tinfoil, at least that company has a true value. Like, Reynolds is making profit. But no, that's just the point. So the mixture of being able to play it and it being a fantasy thing and people buying fantasy figurally, it's why wrestling works so well.
Yeah, it's so funny that you brought it up like that too, because I remember like getting my allowance and being able to buy my first action figure on my own, and it was a bone crunching action figure of Bret Hart, and I was so excited, but I didn't have money to buy two. So for the longest time, it was, I was waiting another week for my allowance. I was sitting there wrestling with them with my hand, trying to replicate moves with it, and like if the imagination was endless, and that's I think that's the whole fun of action figures in general, is you could, as long as you think about it and you want to put your mind to it, you could do whatever you want with it, and that's the beauty of it all.
Right. Yeah, go ahead.
So let's be honest, we'll all still pick up a wrestling figure these day and age and wrestle it with our other time.
Absolutely. I had a fantasy roster. I had a belt holder. I remember, so before the LJNs came out, before my one of my mentors, Jack Friedman, put out the LJNs in the early 80s, 83, if I remember correctly, something to that effect. I was playing with my Star Wars figures and assigning a name to each figure, or my GI Joes, and it wasn't like the internet days where you could do all the research and understand the history. Like, to me, when I saw the LJN figures, those are the first wrestling figures I'd ever seen. It might as well, like, I know that AWA and some of the other things that existed prior, but they didn't exist for me. Like, I never saw them at the store. So, like, when I saw those figures, it changed everything. Like, it was immediately, I didn't have my own fantasy roster. I had an actual roster, and I would keep win-loss records, and I had belt holders. And so it was really exciting, when Jack Friedman hired me at Jakks. That was a big moment, because I was able to sit down with him every week and talk shop.
Here's the other thing. Most people don't remember, but me and you collecting LJNs and playing with them, they didn't have a ring right away. So my dad had to build me a ring, and he got the dowels and he drilled it in, and we got elastic. So, like, we had to build a ring at first. So,
oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So, and my neighbor's dad made him a ring. So it was just fun seeing all the different rings, and I wish I still had that ring, because that would thing to still have. But it's just, I can't imagine being a wrestling fan without the figures. Like, to me, it just goes hand in hand. Like, I don't know, like, and we watch, and I'm sure you do the same thing. We're watching the pay-per-view, and I'm like, I can't wait for that figure. Oh, MJF coming out with the Triple H jacket. I hope that's a figure. So it just goes hand in hand. It's just so exciting.
Yeah, it's been a true pleasure for that to be part of my professional life. I mean, like, I really don't. I mean, I can see how today people can copy a good thing, and they can like, they don't have to necessarily be a wrestling fan. They can see the game plan, and then they can carry it forth. And but at the time, like back in the day, back in the early 2000s, when we were kind of creating the game plan for modern wrestling figures, like that took a fan. That took fans. Like you couldn't do that. There was nobody to copy. And if we were going to be copying anything, we were going to be going straight off the shelf, because again, like I said, that was the time where things really shifted. And you can see that with the LJN figures, you know, those were directed towards children. The Hasbro figures, those were directed towards children. And the Jakks figures, for quite some time, it was all directed towards kids. It wasn't until we came in, or I came in 2002 from Mattel and said, like, well, let's make figures for adults and see what happens. And that's everything. I think pretty much 90% of wrestling figures today, you're not making it just for a kids market. Maybe there's a niche thing here and there, but that's not the market anymore.
That's so crazy. And you know what? It's like our parents and grandparents, the grandfathers, they had train sets. Like, they collected their trains. It's really not much different than what we do with these figures. So
yeah, definitely. And by the way, that train business is still very legit. I can tell you that.
oh, we have a huge store and display of the trains right 10, 15 minutes from my house. I think it's one of the biggest on the East Coast, actually.
Oh, wow.
But,
That's so cool.
That is cool.
I pass it all the time. Like, I still have to go in there, because I think it would just be cool to walk around and look at it, see all the displays. Because I remember we had the trains as a kid to set up around a tree and everything. So
Yeah, no, ideally, you know, the wrestling fan of me wants to have that train table, but with a full blown arena with fans in every seat, crazy stuff.
It's not too crazy. I mean, I think you know, anything is in the realm of possibility. There has to be some market for it. There has to be some level of excitement. You know, one of the things that we did way back at the Wicked Cool Toys days is we were doing those arenas that were made of like the cardboard based. That was actually really cool. That allowed us to, you know, in a relatively inexpensive way, develop. I think we could have done better. I think we could have made them a little bit less flimsy, maybe a little bit. But you know, there's ways to do these things that are possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Had that amazing stage, the AEW stage with the cardboard. And I saw a question in the chat, like, hey, can we get a real scale stage through the Jazwares walls? Which is another great idea. Another, our buddy J-Bone said, can we get LED ring skirts for the authentic scale ring? Like, so there's ideas out there.
Let me tell you, this is going to be the catalyst for a big discussion and conversation. So like I said, you know, guys, bring the ideas. Let's think about it, and then we'll develop something that you know, that may be cool. You know, hopefully it is next level.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the great thing about the wrestling figure community is they're not shy of being vocal. You know.
No, they're not shy to being vocal, and there's no shortage of ideas. But you know what? That's what I find, you know, about adults in general. You know, if adults are passionate about something, they have an opinion. You know, if they're not passionate, then they don't have an opinion. So if you can handle the fact that people say some things that are not necessarily nice all the time, but you know, there's no relationship I have where someone just says nice things all the time. That doesn't make any sense, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't mind. In fact, if I'm reading the feedback and reviews, and it's a balance of negative feedback and positive feedback, you know, you can learn something from all of it. And but in this particular case, you know, if our objective is to think about how can we create a real scale ring that's really freaking cool, out of the box, next level, bring all your ideas and you know, bring your positivity, bring your negativity, bring whatever you got, and we'll take a look through it and see what we can learn.
I like it. We're gonna have a little FigGuys powwow and just talk rings.
I love it. I love in wrestling rings. It's one of my favorite things about.
Absolutely. Before we pull back and go back around to the vault stuff again, I had a little of a deeper question for you, because it's my son is graduating grammar school this week, and it clicked into my head as I was picking him up from school today. But if you can go back and talk to yourself as the day you were graduating grammar school, what would be the bestowed wisdom that you would put upon yourself?
That's 5th grade. Graduating 5th grade.
Graduating 8th grade, going into high school.
Oh shoot! I thought that was middle school.
Okay,
Okay, so graduating 8th grade. Well, it's interesting because my youngest is just graduating 8th grade as well. Believe it or not.
Wow.
So let me think about that. What would I say to myself at 14 years old? I think that I think I would tell myself to be resilient, because this world requires a lot of resilience. To do things that I like, because a career is a very long time, and to not be afraid to take some risks. That would be my message. Actually, a 4th thing, I would say, don't take debt to go to college. And the reason why I say that is I ended up I paid for my undergrad and grad school. Long story short, my dad started a business when I was in high school, and it was brutal. I mean, like it ended up being okay in the end, but it was certainly rough in the interim. And so I did everything I could to be independent. And but there was time where I had some debt, and luckily I also I had a lot of ingenuity, and I started a small internet business and paid that debt off as I was going, and worked while I was RA in the dorm system, everything to just pay that off. But here's what I see. I see a lot of kids that they go to school, they try to get into the best school they possibly can, regardless of what that debt looks like. And then they don't pay attention to how well that degree pays back. So they'll go to a very expensive school, they'll take the debt, they'll get a low-paying degree, and that's a disaster. Nothing will make any human being feel less capable or smart than being under a shitload of debt. And so, excuse my language.
No, you don't.
But so those would be the 4 things. Be resilient, avoid college debt, take some risks, and do something that you love or passion, or that at least you think you have passion for, because a career is a very, very long time.
I love that. So, and to all of our viewers out there that are going through that seasonal change of, moving on to a new step, I mean, it steps beyond, going into high school or going into college, and except for the college part, obviously. But I mean, resiliency is, a key to life, and you shouldn't be afraid to get yourself out there and put yourself out there. I'm always here for the Jeremy truth drops and the infinite wisdom that comes from you. So
your kids are never too young. They're never too young to start teaching them about the power of money and the power of debt. Because really, like, I think that what we do is we try to tell our kids, you're so smart, you're a genius, you're amazing at everything, you can do anything. And these things are not life skills that allow people to necessarily survive the reality of the world. And so if you're asking me a heavy question, I'm going to give you a heavy answer. Not everybody's Einstein. I'm certainly not. But I did something I really liked. And I took big risks because I felt capable of taking those risks. And I wasn't weighed down by, massive issues that the world can levy on a human being. Now, for anybody out there that is excited about trying things and doing things that you love, I wish you the best. And for those of you that feel like you're stuck, here's the truth. You're alive. You're not stuck. Where there's a will, there's a way, especially today, because today being passionate about something means that you could do it on Etsy, means you could do it on eBay. Okay, so maybe you don't own a toy company, or maybe you don't start a toy company, but you can start a toy channel. Like there's just so many ways to experience the things that you're passionate about in this world. All I tell people is this: you don't have to do it 100% of the time. Do it 5% of the time, and that keeps your fire going. It's just when you get to 0%, and you're doing something you hate, today in 2024, that's more on you than it is on the world, because there is so many options out there for you to participate in things that you feel passionate for.
Absolutely. Couldn't have been said better than I was expecting. So thank you, sir. I appreciate it. I know he's going to enjoy watching this and take that life lesson. So thank you. But hey, let's go back. Tomorrow morning, we are hitting out the third Jazwares Vault launch, man. We're getting some awesome drops, like we were talking about earlier. We got that beautiful Death Triangle set with the trios titles. Gorgeous, right? Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Not more of a toyetic bunch than that's in that picture right there. But yeah, these are popping off tomorrow. I mean, I'm hoping for the best for everybody out there. I'm excited. I know I'm going to grab mine. I know Tom's going to grab his. What's your vibe every time you get these launches? You still get the butterflies? You still feeling it and hoping for pandemonium?
I do. You know what? Here's what I hope for. I hope things sell out. I like when they sell out pretty quickly. And I realize you get grief for that, but like I said, you get grief either way. So you
100%
get good grief versus bad grief. No, I think that you're going to see some really cool stuff down the line from us as well. So
I'm excited.
I am so excited. I am so excited to see. Like I said, it's nice to walk into the stores and see these new lines there and just, oh man, I got the House of Black all at once, one shot, boom, done. So
yeah, exactly.
So
the best.
So much for spending this time with us, man. We can't tell you how much it meant to us. It was a blast as always.
My pleasure. No, you guys are awesome, and just your passion for the category, your love for wrestling in general, your understanding of figures, your understanding of, who the consumer is. The only thing that would make that trio better is if Cardona was in it.
Right. He makes everything better, though. He's the ultimate broski, right?
He's convinced that I love him, and here's the truth: I love him. He's my bro.
Yeah, we love to hear it, man. We love Cardona too. It was funny. There was one of the fan fest taking place, and it was some of the Jazwares guys. One of the Mattel guys came walking in to go like scurry around the booths there, and then Cardona came walking out, and I was sitting back, and I was like, this would be the most viral wrestling figure picture right now. It's all three of the conglomerates in one space. Like the world's imploding. It was awesome.
I'm impressed. I'm super impressed with those guys. Between him and Brian and Mark and that crew, not only are they independently successful professional wrestlers, but you've also got Create a Pro, which is unbelievable. Like, it's incredible. They have their own school and where they've had tremendous outcomes, and then creating a product. I mean, like, that's a triple threat. And look, it's not easy just managing your own career, being a pro wrestler. I can't even imagine all the things that those guys have to deal with. So it's very impressive. Very impressive.
Which, have you seen the big rubber guys?
Of course. I like them.
It's brought me back. I never thought at this age I'd be getting new LJN type figures, and I'm here for it.
And the hard thing is, at retail, the reason why you weren't getting more, I would say, authentic LJN style figures is because the scale was a little bit too big for a traditional peg. And so it wasn't merching all that well in the space. So I'm happy those guys are doing it. I think it's really cool.
It's awesome, man. And it goes good with our LJ and AEW figures. We finally got people to beat up with our Darby Allens, and so it works out great.
True.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you again, guys. Tomorrow, the Vault, Jazwares Vault. Make sure you order your Danhausen and your Death Triangle. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be two amazing drops.
9 a.m. Pacific.
9 a.m.
If I got that right, yeah.
Eastern. Jeremy, again, you are the best. No words. Just thank you so much. Just so much.
Best. What can I tell you? I've been doing it the longest, so maybe that makes me the best at this point.
It works. We're under the learning tree of Jeremy Padawer.
It worked for LeBron.
I love it.
All right, guys. Until next week, thank you for joining us. Visit thefigguys.com. Follow us everywhere you can. And also, we are at Official Fig Guys on all social media platforms. Until next week, Fig Guys out.
Thanks for watching Big Guys. Please like, follow, subscribe.